Why are millions of people suddenly switching to Linux in 2026? For years, Linux was seen as the operating system for programmers, hackers, and tech enthusiasts who enjoyed typing mysterious commands into a terminal. Most everyday users stayed far away because they believed Linux was complicated, unsupported, or simply not made for normal life. But something changed quietly over the past few years, and now a growing number of students, gamers, freelancers, developers, businesses, and even casual home users are moving toward Linux without making a lot of noise about it. This is not a loud revolution with flashy marketing campaigns or celebrity endorsements. It's a slow, steady shift happening in the background of the tech world, and the reasons behind it go much deeper than people expect. One of the biggest reasons is control. People in 2026 are more aware than ever that their computers are not truly theirs when the operating system decides what updates to install, what data to collect, or what apps to promote. Over time, users started feeling that traditional operating systems were becoming crowded with unwanted features, forced upgrades, and background services that consumed performance. Linux entered this conversation quietly by offering something simple but powerful: freedom. When someone installs Linux, they choose how the system looks, how it behaves, what software runs, and even how updates are delivered. This feeling of ownership has become extremely attractive in a world where technology often feels restrictive. Another reason is performance. Hardware prices have increased in many regions, and not everyone can afford to upgrade their laptops every 2 or 3 years. Linux distributions are known for running smoothly even on older machines. People who thought their laptops were slow or outdated discovered that installing a lightweight Linux distribution suddenly made their devices feel fast again. This practical benefit spread quickly through online communities, tech forums, and YouTube channels. Students began installing Linux on used laptops, freelancers started reviving older desktops, and businesses realized they could extend the life of their hardware without expensive replacements. Security is also playing a huge role in the quiet rise of Linux. As cyber threats become more common, many users are looking for systems that offer strong protection without constant interruptions. Linux has a reputation for stability and security because of its open-source nature. Thousands of developers around the world review the code, fix vulnerabilities, and contribute improvements. This doesn't make Linux magically immune to threats, but it does create a sense of transparency that many people appreciate. Instead of waiting for a single company to push updates, the community responds quickly to problems, and that builds trust among users who care about privacy and safety. Privacy itself has become a major motivation. Over the past decade, conversations about data collection and digital tracking have become mainstream. Users want to know what their computers are doing behind the scenes. Linux distributions often collect little to no personal data by default, which makes them appealing to those who are tired of being tracked. Even people who are not deeply technical understand the value of having an operating system that respects their boundaries. This shift toward privacy-focused thinking has slowly nudged more individuals toward Linux, especially younger users who grew up during the era of social media awareness. Gaming used to be one of the biggest barriers preventing people from leaving other operating systems, but that barrier is shrinking rapidly. Tools like Proton and advancements in compatibility layers have made thousands of games playable on Linux without complicated setup. Game developers are also paying more attention to Linux support, partly because of handheld gaming devices and the growing popularity of alternative platforms. As gaming becomes less of a limitation, many users who once felt locked into a single ecosystem are finally exploring Linux without fear of losing access to their favorite titles. Another factor driving this shift is the rise of creators and influencers who openly share their experiences with Linux. In the past, Linux content was often technical and intimidating, but modern creators present it in a friendly, accessible way. They show how easy it is to install, customize, and use Linux for everyday tasks like video editing, graphic design, and content creation. These creators don't present Linux as a perfect system. Instead, they highlight both the strengths and challenges, which makes their message feel more authentic. Viewers see real people using Linux for real work, and that authenticity encourages them to try it themselves. Education has also contributed to the growth of Linux. Many universities and online learning platforms teach programming, cybersecurity, and cloud computing using Linux-based environments. Students who learn on Linux often continue using it after graduation because they feel comfortable with its tools. Over time, This creates a new generation of professionals who see Linux not as a niche alternative, but as a normal part of their workflow. As these professionals enter the workforce, they influence companies to adopt Linux for servers, development environments, and even desktop use. The economic factor cannot be ignored either. In many parts of the world, including developing regions, the cost of software licenses can be a serious barrier. Linux distributions are typically free, which makes them accessible to people who might otherwise rely on outdated or unofficial software. Small businesses, internet cafes, and students benefit from being able to install a reliable operating system without worrying about licensing fees. This accessibility quietly expands the Linux user base every year, especially in areas where affordability matters most. Customization is another powerful attraction. Modern users want their technology to reflect their personality and workflow. Linux allows deep customization from the visual interface to system behavior. Some people create minimalistic setups that focus purely on productivity, while others design visually stunning desktops that look completely different from traditional operating systems. This creative freedom turns the operating system into something personal rather than generic. When users share screenshots of their customized desktops online, it inspires others to experiment and explore what Linux can do. The open-source philosophy behind Linux also resonates with people who believe technology should be transparent and collaborative. Instead of being controlled by a single corporation, Linux is shaped by a global community of developers, designers, and users. This collaborative spirit creates a sense of belonging. People don't just use Linux. They contribute to it by reporting bugs, translating software, creating tutorials, or helping newcomers. This sense of community is something many users feel is missing from more commercial ecosystems. Cloud computing and remote work trends have further accelerated the shift. Many developers and IT professionals already work with Linux servers in the cloud, so using Linux on their personal machines creates a consistent environment. The rise of containerization tools, automation platforms, and development frameworks that work seamlessly with Linux makes it a logical choice for modern workflows. Even non-developers benefit from this trend because the software they use behind the scenes often relies on Linux technologies. Another subtle but important reason is simplicity. Despite its reputation for complexity, many modern Linux distributions focus on user-friendly design. Installation processes have become straightforward, software stores make it easy to find applications, and desktop environments offer familiar layouts. People who try Linux for the first time are often surprised by how approachable it feels compared to the intimidating image it had years ago. This gap between perception and reality is one of the quiet drivers behind the growing adoption. Corporate decisions and industry trends also influence the rise of Linux. Some companies are exploring alternatives to reduce dependency on specific vendors or to align with open-source strategies. Governments and educational institutions in various regions have shown interest in open-source software to maintain digital independence and reduce long-term costs. These institutional changes might not always make headlines, but they contribute to a steady increase in Linux usage worldwide. At the same time, the Linux ecosystem itself has matured significantly. Software compatibility has improved, drivers for hardware are more widely supported, and communities provide extensive documentation. Problems that once required hours of troubleshooting can now be solved with a quick search or a helpful forum post. This maturity makes Linux feel less experimental and more like a stable, reliable option for everyday computing. Social trends also play a role. People enjoy being part of movements that feel authentic and grassroots. Linux represents a kind of quiet rebellion against the idea that technology must always follow a single path defined by large corporations. Switching to Linux becomes more than a technical decision. It becomes a statement about independence and curiosity. Even users who don't fully understand the technical details feel drawn to this sense of empowerment. The environmental aspect is another angle that rarely gets discussed, but quietly influences decisions. By extending the life of older hardware, Linux helps reduce electronic waste. Users who care about sustainability appreciate the idea that their computers don't need to be replaced just because a new operating system demands more resources. This practical environmental benefit aligns with the values of many younger users who want to make more responsible choices. As more people experiment with Linux, the learning curve becomes less intimidating because communities grow stronger. Tutorials, forums, and social media groups provide support for beginners, making the transition smoother. The moment someone realizes they are not alone in the process, the fear of switching decreases. Word-of-mouth recommendations spread faster than traditional advertising, and each new user becomes a potential advocate. Looking at 2026, the shift toward Linux doesn't feel like a sudden explosion, but rather a gradual transformation. It's happening quietly in classrooms, home offices, gaming setups, and workplaces around the world. People are not necessarily abandoning other operating systems completely. Many use Linux alongside them, creating flexible workflows that combine different tools. This hybrid approach allows users to explore Linux without feeling locked into a single choice. What makes this movement fascinating is that it isn't driven by one single feature or breakthrough. Instead, it's the combination of privacy awareness, performance needs, economic factors, community culture, and technological maturity coming together at the right time. Each small reason adds up, creating a wave that is strong enough to reshape the computing landscape without making a loud announcement. In the end, the quiet OS revolution is less about technology and more about people reclaiming control over their digital lives. Linux offers an alternative that feels open, adaptable, and respectful of user choice. As more individuals discover that they don't need to follow the same path everyone else takes, the momentum continues to grow. Millions are switching not because of hype, but because they see practical benefits that fit their needs. And as this silent transformation unfolds, it's becoming clear that the future of computing may not belong to the loudest platform, but to the one that quietly empowers its users to shape their own experience.